Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here to present actions that are currently done in France. I'll just share my screen now. Okay. So yes, I am the scientific advisor of the National Action Plan for the Lesser Kestrel, among other species. I'm working at Montpellier University as a researcher on bird ecology and raptor ecology. And I'm so happy to present you the actions that are currently done in France nowadays and in the future. The French population is much lower than the ones previously presented in Spain, Italy, and Greece. We are really at the northern edge of the European distribution, but it's still a strategic position between the large population in Iberia and the other large population in Italy and the Balkans. So we could fill up the gap between these two populations. The French situation was really not good 40 years ago. Only 2 pairs were remaining in crow. The species was almost extinct. Only 2 pairs were living there in this area between Montpellier and Marseille. And currently, now the population has increased. We are reaching 565 breeding pairs in France, divided into 3 nodes of population. The historical one in crow with 230 pairs. In Hérault, 254 pairs near Montpellier, and the new population in Aude with 81 pairs. You can see the increase of these populations among the last 40 years. There are quite several specialities in the French population. As it was said before by Maurice Zotzar, the historical population was the one still living in the crow plain. It's a really unique landscape of steppe in southern France. Between Marseille and Montpellier. It's a nature reserve. It's really a unique species in this area, including endemic species of plants and of insects. And 2 pairs were remaining, nesting in this kind of stone piles on the ground. And after long-term actions, now there are some kind of 230 pairs that are half of them were still breeding in these stone piles, and the other half is breeding in nest boxes in barns like this one in photo here. So the breeding success of this population is quite high, but if you consider only the successful pair, the 3 fledglings per successful pair, but if you look at the productivity, the number of fledglings per nesting pair, the success is lower. There's a lot of predation occurring on the pairs that are nesting on the ground, especially from snakes and rats. And the mean population growth rate on the last 10 years was about 5% per year. The second population that becomes the largest one nowadays was only discovered almost 20 years ago. 11 pairs were discovered in this village in Saint-Pons-de-Mauchien. And so it's really a urban population living under the roof tiles, as it's commonly described in Spain and in Greece. And now it's naturally colonized this area, and now it's increasing quite a lot. We have 254 pairs spreading to 13 villages in the area, with a quite high breeding success and productivity, and quite high population growth rate, above 12 and 13% per year. The third population was issued from reintroduction. It was a life transfer program between 2006 and 2010 in collaboration with DEMA. There was 242 chicks translocated in this little building here, it was specially built for the lesser kestrels. And the first breeder was established in this building in 2007. And nowadays we have 81 pairs breeding into 4 villages in this area between the Spanish border and the big population in Hérault. A quite large breeding success as well in productivity, and a very high growth rate currently with 24% per year. And currently the population is mostly breeding in villages in the roof, like it is in Hérault as well. Thanks to the action of my colleague Philippe Pilat, who is also a co-presenter of the talk. I forgot to mention his name, but he's really the coordinator of the actions in France with the LPO. So Philip did a lot of ringing since 1994 in crow, and so he could ring at almost 5,000 chicks and almost 80,000 recitings. So it allows very interesting evaluation of demographic rates with 69% of adult survival, 50% for juvenile survival, and also assessment of the breeding frequency for adults with 88% of breeding frequency and subadult with only 42%. With this high resolution and long-term demographic data, we could also estimate the variation in growth rate that was related to rainfall in Sahel. So the year with a high rainfall, you can see with the rainfall with this line here with dark blue. When the high rainfall, the next year you have a quite high population growth rate. But we also discovered very recently that with the demographic modeling, that the population growth rate that is observed currently in Hero, in the central population, is only possible if we account for immigration. Because if you only take the survival rates and the breeding success, you cannot cope with the observed growth rate. So there are some immigration from Spain currently ongoing. It is observed with a few marked birds, but probably a lot of unknown birds that are arriving in this population and contribute to the growth rate of this population. So, what are the problems? Sorry, on the next, we are identifying new threats in the area. One of them is a lack of dispersal and colonization in crow. The population only stays in the nature reserve. So it is protected in this area, but probably we lack connectivity with other population, and we would like to enforce the connectivity with Italy. That would be good for this population. And also we found that I just said before, probably the immigration from Spain is really important for the growth of the French colonies. So we fear a reduction of immigration from Spain, according to the recent decrease in population size in population growth rate in Spain. We don't know if the immigration will continue to boost our population. So this is a big question for the future. A big problem we have now is wind farms, and especially in Hérault, the central population, which is currently the largest population in France, and there is a large wind farm of 31 turbines that is located very close to these main colonies, between 3 and 10 kilometers from the main breeding colonies. And according to extensive monitoring of mortality, we could already find 51 dead lesser kestrel between 2011 and 2020. We estimate that 3 times more birds are not found thanks to this monitoring and detection test and persistent test. And we think we estimated that this impacted the population growth rate already by reducing the population growth rate by between 2 and 4%. So the observed population growth rate, which is quite high, could be much higher if we don't have this mortality at this wind farm. What are the solutions? Now currently all the turbines are equipped with a detection and scaling device like DT-Bird, and still we observed mortality on every turbine, more or less. So it's probably not very effective on that species. So we are thinking of other solutions. And we did some GPS tracking of about 28 birds now for the last 4 years. And the birds were tagged in these 3 main villages. The wind farm is in this area. You can see the little signs here. And what we observed that the orange color here gives the overlap of all the home ranges of the individuals. And you can see that all the birds go to forage in this area and also in the wind farms. It's a really important area for them for foraging. And probably because it's very good habitat to find orthopterans. It's very kind of desert place without agriculture and a very good matorral habitat. We looked further at why do the birds come there, and we find a good relationships with the probability of occurrence is increasing with the updraft velocity, and the updraft velocity is really when the special winds that are blowing from the northwest or from the southeast, it creates the orographic updraft that seems to be favored by the lesser kestrels, probably to increase their foraging success or to decrease travel costs between the colonies and the wind farms. So maybe one option would be some kind of selective curtailment of the wind turbines depending on the wind direction, but this is only work in progress. So we launched a new action plan, national action plan for the species. It started this year, and the long-term goal is to increase the population size up to 1,000 breeding pairs minimum in France, and to cover at least 2,000 square kilometers to reach at least 30% of the historical presence area. And there are three main axes for this action plan. First, strengthening the three current population to favor colonization of new sites, reducing the threats, especially the mortality with infrastructure, and to work also with wintering grounds. So regarding the breeding area, the plans is really to continue the high resolution monitoring for demography and also mapping the home range for the three populations. Currently, we have a good, we know what happened in the Hérault, but we need more work in the Croc. And for instance, we see here that in the Croc area between the Camargue and the Marseille airport here, the birds mostly stay in the Croc and a bit in the Camargue. And we think that we would like to increase the colonization of the area, especially in the Alpi, which should have very suitable habitat for the species. So we are aiming at a new translocation program to promote the colonization of this new breeding site in this area to safeguard this population. And again, control the new wind farms and power lines that will be built in this highly enterprised area here. Secondly, we need to understand more what's happening with the post-nuptial stopover areas, because we have a strange phenomenon in France. We discovered that many of these birds breeding in Croc, in Hérault, travel north at the end of August and September, probably to benefit from very good foraging opportunities in these high plateaus, where the grasshopper phenology is probably delayed compared to the Mediterranean lowlands here. And so we need to understand better what's happening. It's good, that can be roofed with at least 500 or 700 individuals coming to this roost. And we could observe ringed bird coming from France, but also from Spain. So from some Spanish bird travel up there to spend 1 or 2 months at the end of summer. So we need to continue the monitoring on these routes. We need to improve our knowledge of the diet of the birds at these post-nuptial areas, and also to understand their foraging area. And we fear in this area some cumulative impacts of the wind farms, because there are at least 40 wind farms in project or currently built in this area. We already have 5 cases of dead lesser kestrel in this area away from the breeding site. So there could be a cumulative impact of all these wind farms that the birds must cross to travel between their breeding site towards their roosting site in the post-nuptials. And we need to enforce some robust monitoring of mortality to understand better this mortality. Mention also some areas in the Pyrenees, high plateaus in the Pyrenees and the Alps that are also used by lesser kestrels. Finally, we need to understand better the migratory routes, but it's not very surprising. They mostly go to the Mali and Senegal. But the new thing we discovered that these birds can cross the sea, especially in the Gulf du Lion, and there are new projects of offshore wind farm in this area. So the lesser kestrels could be doubly impacted by wind farms at the breeding site, at the migration in Spain especially, and also at sea now. So we need to evaluate much more the possible impact of these wind farms when they cross the sea, and also work more with African people here especially in Kuzma, in this very big roost found several years ago by Philippe Pilar that gathered at least 25,000 lesser kestrel together with kites and swallowtail kites in this area. So it's we need to develop partnership with to have a long-term monitoring of this very large roost site, improve the root site management and make public visit maybe, or organize it better, and also evaluate the impact of the new extension of salt marshes close to the city of Kaolack that may impact possibly this the presence of people in this island that gathers a large population of lesser kestrel in this area. And finally, we are currently working to have a new live program to get means to work on this action plan, which is national action plan is a declaration of intention, but the money for this plan is not very high. So this life program will be necessary to have funding for telemetric devices and associated fieldwork, also to launch this new translocation around the Crow. Launch again conservation program in Senegal and develop partnership with other partners in Spain, Portugal, Italy, and also, of course, in Africa. Thanks for your attention. Gracias.
Thank you very much, Olivier. We have one question for you.
Yes.
Yes, it's about the percentage of failures in the crowd because they are breeding on the ground. And someone thinks that the breeding parameters are not as good as you have said in the conference.
The data I gave there's lots of variation between years. Actually, some years there is not much predation, but it's just one snake or one stone pile that can gather 10 or 20 nests sometimes, to be killed by all the chicks that can be killed in one night or so, and then it could decrease tremendously the breeding success in that particular year. So I didn't present the standard deviation, but they are quite high in the stone pile, and it's much more regular in the barns.
Okay, thank you very much, Olivier. Any more questions, Juncal?
Yes, if you can explain a little bit better about the device to avoid birds. The devices to avoid birds.
To avoid birds, sorry?
Yes, the devices just to avoid the birds flying and to stop in the time.
Okay. At the wind farm. Well, currently it's just scaring. So it doesn't, they don't stop the turbines, they just try to scare the bird, and obviously it doesn't work at all. When there are high activities, they sometimes stop the turbines, but it's the problem with the lesser kestrel is that their behavior is not a regular bird behavior. They don't just fly, they stop all the time. They fly, they stop, they stop, they fly, they stop, etc. So the detection program has trouble to determine a good trajectory, and so it doesn't know what decision to take, and most of the time they don't shut down the turbines. And anyways, they should shut down all the time because they are always feeding when there are good wind conditions, so when they're producing electricity, that's also when the birds come. But what we found now that with the distribution of the birds inside the wind farm is not homogeneous and really dependent on the wind direction. When the wind blows from the northwest, they mostly go to the northwestern slope to face the wind actually. And then half of the park is not used by the bird at that time. So there could be a possibility of mitigation to shut down the turbines when where the birds go, depending on the wind direction, and let it turn on the other side of the park. And when the wind reverses, then change the pattern. But this is a difficult negotiation with wind farm developers.
Okay, thank you very much for your answers.
Welcome.